So, I thought I would cover some of the things that you can meditate on while you're doing the refuge. Namo Guruvya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. So one is to think about, what does refuge mean? And what's the relationship between taking refuge and trusting in the three jewels? You know, and why do we trust the three jewels more than ordinary sentient beings? Okay, and then also to think about what's the difference between a religious institution and the three jewels as the objects of refuge, because sometimes we get that quite confused. You know, the Dharma is the path that we're following in the cessation. The institution is something created by human beings. When we take refuge in the three jewels, are we all automatically taking refuge in Buddhist institutions? Yeah, and what's the relationship to the institution? So that can be something nice to think about too. Then also, why are you taking refuge? What is it that motivates you to take refuge? And we have, of course, what the refuge, the causes for refuge listed in the Lam Rim, as, you know, seeing the danger in samsara, and in particularly lower rebirth, and faith in the three jewels and compassion for all beings. But is that what really motivates us? And, you know, to think about what is our motivation, and then also to enhance that motivation by trying to cultivate those three causes that are listed in the Lam Rim. Okay, and then to think deeply about the qualities of the three jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, so we know why we're taking refuge in them, why they're worthy objects of refuge, knowing the difference between the causal and the resultant refuge. Okay, because the more we know about what we're taking refuge in, then the more we'll understand how to cultivate a good relationship with the three jewels and what to expect. Okay, especially if we grew up believing in a theistic religion, we may have one set of expectations that we just project or import into Buddhism. That doesn't apply, but when we really think about what the three jewels are, that helps us know what to expect and what kind of relationship we establish with them. And then to think, what did we take refuge in before? Not only our religion of origin, but just in our regular daily life. How do we take refuge in food, in friends, in distraction, in drugs, in alcohol, in possessions, and status, and so many other things? So to really see that taking refuge is something that we've been doing our whole life, trying to find a way that protects us from suffering and to have happiness, but we haven't really understood what refuge is about and what worthy objects of refuge are. And then what's the advantages of taking refuge in the three jewels? How does that help us grow? Okay. And here it's interesting also to think, how would my life turn out if I hadn't have taken refuge in the three jewels? Okay. So if I hadn't had met the Dharma, what would I be doing now? What kind of life would I be living? What kind of karma would I be creating? What kind of rebirth could I expect? Okay. And then regarding taking refuge with the Guru, what's the purpose of having spiritual mentors? And how do you choose them? In other words, what are the qualities you look for? And what are the qualities that the scriptures tell us to look for? Because sometimes, you know, the criteria we use aren't the right one. Okay? And what does it mean to have a good relationship with our spiritual teachers? How can we create one? How can we enhance one? And what are helpful ways for handling difficulties that we may have in our relationships with our spiritual teachers? Okay. And then how, so far, has refuge helped us? What benefit have we derived from taking refuge and having us, you know, spiritual mentors until now? And how do we want that to go in the future? You know, so again, think about how to create a good relationship with all of them. And then how does taking refuge change the way you feel about your spiritual practice and your goals in life, your priority? Okay. What effect does taking refuge over and over and over again have on you? In other words, think about your refuge when you first became a Buddhist, and what it's like now, and how has it matured, and what's have been the causes for it maturing, what have been the results and the effects of it maturing. And then is there anything you feel uncomfortable about with taking refuge? And if there is, then try and really isolate what your doubts are, and then ask questions and think about your doubts and try and resolve them. Okay? Because it doesn't do any good just to put our doubts down and say, "Oh, I'm not supposed to think that way." You know, we should we should ask questions, but when we ask questions, we should think about the answers. We shouldn't have the attitude of, "You prove it to me, and until you prove it to me, I'm not going to believe," because it's not anybody else's job to prove anything to us. People give us information, and then we have to think about it ourselves and see if it makes sense. And if an explanation doesn't make sense the first time, don't just throw it out the window, but think, you know, maybe I didn't get all the information I need, or maybe I didn't understand the sequence and the way to think here properly. And so go back and rethink it. Okay, so that's enough for today. We'll cover some more tomorrow. Okay, but you can see, you know, when you take refuge, there's a lot to think about. And when you think about these different things, your refuge really deepens. And it also makes the practice of taking refuge more interesting, because then you're not just sitting there, you know, reciting the mantra with your mind wandering, but you're guiding your mind and gaining some understanding as you go.